Hey everybody, Mark Herman, aka LA Bengals fan on most of the major platforms, and I'm joined here by super fans Devin Circus and his son Jake Circus of the Jake Circus podcast, and this is our free agency recap jungle talk. Yeah, all right. So don't get too excited, guys. I know I do that for the. I told them I do that for the. We put up the audio on Spotify, so they got to hear something that's kind of an intro. The people watching us, it is what it is. So before I forget, if you don't subscribe, please subscribe. It's all we ask. We do these shows by fans for fans, so just support the channel, hit the subscribe, hit the bell, get the alerts, and then Jake, tell them where they can find all your stuff.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Jake Circus. That's where most of my Bengals and NFL stuff goes. And then my podcast, a little bit of a break right now with not really much going on, but when the NFL season or off season kind of slows down and the OTA start, we'll do a lot more content there. Jake Circus podcast on Spotify and YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah. And he does some great gambling shows. So are you doing any stuff on baseball or?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Degenerately betting baseball every day.
Yeah,
right, Dad?
You want to follow him, check his Twitter feed. So
got some.
But maybe don't trail his picks these days.
So
hey, we are baseball. Well, it's only 5 days in. Not off to a great start, but I finished in the green last year, over 400 plays over the course of 6 months. So there's a pretty big sample size there.
Anytime
you were 0-1 today.
I gave Jake my mortal lock today, and
and it lost.
I was right, but it didn't hit.
If it's a mortal
I'm the one who made the money on it.
Didn't hit. It's a miss. I'm just. I don't care how you
That's why I don't bet anymore.
So, but well, my big kudos was I jumped on UConn after the Sweet 16. They were still 8-1. I was surprised that they were still there.
Good.
And it was 10-1 when I first logged in. So I did grab some UConn money at the end of the tournament, and I never worried about that. I was so I was pleased with myself there. So
that's great.
Pat on the back. That doesn't take away the fact that in a pool I picked Arizona to go all the way. So I kind of recovered from that.
We can move on. We move on. We don't need to discuss that.
All right. Well, let's jump in. We've got what we want to do. The last big show we did, we had the Orlando Brown signing. So since then, we've had Jonah, who was asked for trade requests. So want to talk a little bit about that. And then we've had a series of some really good signings. So but first, that's the first thing I want to talk about. We lost Bates, we lost Perrine, we lost Bell. Jake, what do you think our compensatory picks are going to be? Are we going to get anything for at least Bates and Bell?
Yeah, they're going to get a third for Jesse. I'm pretty sure. I haven't quite looked. I think Hurst is going to generate a comp pick as well. This will not be for this draft. This will be for next year's draft.
Right.
So they'll come out around this time next year. But there's a guy on Twitter that's like goes really deep into comp picks, but for sure, a third for Jesse Bates. I don't know if Von Bell hits that third round pick threshold, so that will probably be a fourth or a sixth. But for the first time in a while, the Bengals are looking at, because the last couple of years they haven't really traded picks before the draft, so it's okay. They've had 7 picks the last couple of drafts, but for the first time in a while, they've had some good players who it didn't really fit in the future to re-sign, and they're gonna get some compensation out of that for 2024.
I fully admit I don't know the process, but don't they lose the potential of that pick by signing Brown? Doesn't it balance out based on
you might be right. You honestly might be right. I don't know. I have not looked at comp picks. It would not surprise me that is a rule, that is a thing, but I don't know since when, like if the timing has anything to do with it. But there is a guy on Twitter that I'll have to check his stuff after we get off to see what the Orlando Brown signing did, because I remember seeing something when he signed it about someone said, yeah, maybe this will take away the comp pick, but I don't think we'll actually know until they come out next year. But I know we for sure get one for Hurst.
Okay, so
it's not going to be a third for Hurst. Yeah, but
we sign a multi-year deal.
What's that?
We'll get one for Hurst because he signed a multi-year deal, right?
Yeah.
So, well, like I said, we'll revisit that. So look into that. We'll pick that up on the draft preview that we do on our next show. We could talk about it a little more. But that was just something, it's one of those hidden gems because that's how you move from the fourth to the third. Is you take a 4 and a 5 and you throw it with your 4 and you move up from the fourth to the third. And it's this kind of draft capital that allows you to do that. So that's one of the pluses if you lose guys that you can pick up. And we've done pretty well with some of these late picks. Clayton Fendulum, guys like that were late picks that that we used, and look how they turned out. So can't ever argue with that. Most of our signings have been kind of steady and strategic. So while we did lose Hurst, we did bring in Irv Smith. Okay. While we did, lose Bates, and Bell, we did bring in Nick Scott. So we've had some I think, very smart signings, especially on the dollar side. I mean, we tend to be a organization that kind of maximizes our free agent picks. So let's talk about some of them. And we're still shopping. We're still looking because Trevor Siemian's visiting us. So we're still looking to replace Brandon Allen, I think. So let's jump in with
Did Brandon Allen sign somewhere?
Yeah, I think he did. Did he sign?
I didn't know that.
I didn't know if Brandon Allen was still on the team or not, but I know Trevor Siemian is visiting us this week. He's got a lot more playing time than Allen. So what's that?
I mean, the thing with Brandon Allen is he hasn't played in a while, but they have said a lot of good things about him in terms of that Joe likes him. But if you want a backup quarterback, there's like multiple schools of thought with backup quarterbacks because in most cases, if they're on the field, and especially in the Bengals scenario, because how much they rely on Joe. If Brandon Allen's on the field, the season's most likely over, unless Joe is able to come back. But if Joe suffers a season-ending injury, the season's over. So it really doesn't matter how good of a football player the backup quarterback is. But that's probably something like they bring him in to pick his mind, and he can meet Joe and see some stuff. But as far as Brandon Allen goes, I don't know if he's still on the team.
He's unsigned, but he is a free agent. So.
Right. Okay, so he's a free agent.
And hey, Jake, your guy Carson Wentz is still available.
Yeah, he might be suiting up for one of the XFL teams next year.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is that you want somebody, and I'm not saying get Teddy Bridgewater. I'm using him as an example, but you want somebody who can come in like when they had Jameis Winston go down, and Bridgewater won games. Even on Miami, Bridgewater came in and won. You want a capable backup, so if Joe does go down for a few weeks, you could go 2-1 and not get swept 0-3 on those 3 games. So that's the point of having a better backup.
It'll kind of be completely full circle if they bring Andy back.
That's what I was going to. Well, he signed, but
that's right, he did.
There were people that were clamoring to bring Andy back as a backup, and to your point, Mark, I completely agree. I just don't see the Bengals paying $4, $5, $6 million for a backup that you have to pay for.
No, they don't have that.
Right. I just don't see it in the plan.
But Mark, you did make kind of. Circling back to your intro, you did make a good point about the Bengals kind of maximizing their free agent dollar-wise. Yeah. But what they do that's really interesting to me is this has been a trend for them the last couple of years with Duke and Katie taking over and Zach having much more influence on the roster than kind of what Marvin did. Marvin liked a lot of old veterans. That was his history. Yeah. Is they've maximized each player's window of when they're at their peak, like Von Bell, who had a very good year and a contract year with New Orleans, came over. He was like second or third on the team in tackles behind Jesse and Pratt the last 3 years. And Von Bell that was like his 3-year peak with Cincinnati. They did the same thing with Hayden Hurst. He didn't really have a great contract year with Atlanta, came over, suffered through injuries, but was a reliable 4th or 5th pass catcher, and then they've done it countless times, and they're going to keep doing it with Nick Scott, who's going to be a plug and play for Von Bell, with Irv Smith, who has a huge catch radius and is really fast off the line. I'm really excited to see what he can do. He's also able to block in space, which I don't think has been talked about a lot because Hayden Hurst wasn't able to do that. Hurst was a better run blocker, but Irv can get out there and block in space. Bengals love to throw out wide to Jamar. make him break tackles. So that'll be a wrinkle that Irv Smith can bring to the team. And they've added this wrinkle into their mindset with free agents, is that they're going to maximize each player's window and be okay with letting them leave because they know that they're able to replace him.
Yeah, to that point, Jake, I remember reading something a couple of weeks ago, and I feel like it even came up on our last one, is the Bengals formula, especially in free agency, really seems to be they love re-signing their own, but when they're bringing in from outside the organization, they love signing guys on that second contract and never the third. So they love bringing in the 25, 26-year-old that did their 4 or 5 year rookie contract and signing a guy for 3 or 4 years, if it's like the Von Bell quality type, at 26 years old, and then letting them go at 30, regardless of how productive they were in the 27, 28, 29-year-old years. And it's working.
Yeah. No.
And this year was exactly that. I mean, when we signed Orlando Brown, every fan's first instinct was to go look him up and, see what he's about. Obviously, people know Orlando Brown, but, sometimes you look him up and you learn something new about him. And I remember you texted me and you were like, holy shit, he's 25. He's 26.
Yep.
And like his contract's going to be expired. He's not even going to be 30 yet.
Yeah.
Irv Smith isn't even 25. He won't be 25 until the season starts.
To that point, before we started, I looked up Irv Smith because as a fantasy guy, Irv Smith had sleeper on him multiple years, the last couple years. And I feel like he'd been in the league 6, 7, 8 years, whatever. 4 years. And he didn't play 21 because he was healthy. 2019 was his rookie year.
Right. He was 2 as tight end for 1 year right after OJ Howard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now
maybe there was one. Maybe there was one dead year, but Bama has a history of some underrated tight ends.
Oh, I forget.
It was OJ.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
No, I think OJ was drafted in 2018. He was rookie in maybe 17.
We could have had OJ instead of John Ross. We were talking about John Ross earlier. OJ, we could have drafted him, and I could not.
A lot of guys we could have had instead.
Yeah,
of John
so
Ross. Let's not go there; it'll hurt too much.
Yeah, no, it hurts though. But all right. So, and I want to remind everybody now. Irv Smith had a kind of a drop history, and maybe not the surest of hands. But I want to remind everybody. Evan Ingram, when he was on the Giants, had some issues catching the ball. He now has the franchise tag. He had such a good year. So sometimes a change of scenery, a new coach sees something, says, you know what, if you just do this or focus on this or don't let it get to your body or, has a tweak. This, like I said, Evan Ingram got the franchise tag from Jacksonville. So, and this was a guy who had a similar history on the Giants. But
okay,
great
pass. I want to talk about that for a second because I know Jake Lisco did it. And people are saying that Irv Smith has drop problems. I know he had one big drop in a game in the last year. Yeah. He has 4 drops in his career. He's only dropped 4 passes in his career, and he was a number 1 tight end with the Vikings for at least a year and a half. I know he was a starter going into last year, and he got hurt, and then they signed Hawkinson. But like he has 4 drops in his career. Like what is this that we're?
I don't know. That was the big negative on him. And I just want to point out Evan Ingram probably had a comparable amount of drops, but Evan Ingram on prime time dropped a touchdown pass. When you do stuff like that, people remember that. So you can have 3 or 4 drops, and if they're significant, they're going to stick in people's brains versus you never even saw him drop the pass. So
yeah, for his career, he has dropped 4.2% of his passes.
Well, I always go. I trust our coaching staff. So, like when we go with Nick Scott, I know that Nick Scott's got whatever it is Lou's looking for. So I don't even question it.
Absolutely.
He's got a much higher ceiling.
Nick Scott's absolutely. When the moment that they brought him in, I was talking with some other Bengals guys that make content for the team, or not for the team, but do podcasts and stuff. And we're like, this is a guy that Lou likes. He can play downhill. He's very versatile. He has a pretty decent frame. He's a little different than Von Bell. He's not a tackling machine like Von is. Probably won't do much blitzing, but he can play downhill. He's quick. He has good instincts. And he played with a great organization, and which is exactly what the Bengals normally strive for, is players who are captains, come from great organizations, have history of winning. Nick Scott's exactly what Lou's looking for. He's going to play he can play any role asked of him, and that's kind of what Lou has been known to do the last 3-4 years, is move guys around any given week, just depending on who they're playing and what the the scheme and plan is going to be, and that's what Nick Scott can bring. And he's going to be plug and play. He'll be out there week 1 as starting safety next to Dax Hill. That's just how it's going to be.
Yeah. The one thing that I like about him, and it doesn't go to physical characteristics or anything, is the fact that he played for the Rams. He's got a Super Bowl ring. He learned, how to do all that. Probably learned a ton from our good friend Eric Weddle and everything he had to say about the Bengals throughout. But Nick Scott is a 7th-round draft pick, and you rarely see 7th-rounders even make it in the NFL. But when you see them become starters and get a good second contract, that tells me something. That tells me that he's scrappy and that he's going to work his tail off, and he's got probably some good locker room, a good locker room individual, because there's no draft capital. That's a big term used in the NFL. There's no draft capital in a 7th-rounder. So when you see a 7th-rounder make it, there's probably a lot of good to him.
Yeah, I agree. Those are great points. So the last guy, let's talk about Sidney Jones, and let's also talk about Terrell Basham. We got in as a depth piece. So remember, we've re-signed Pratt. We thought Pratt was going to be gone. Pratt's still with us. So we've now added a depth piece at linebacker and then another cornerback. So what are your thoughts on those guys?
Yeah, Jones will play. He's going to be now. The Bengals asked a lot out of Eli Apple when you use the fact that he was signed off the street in August in 2021.
Still a free agent, by the way.
I've still a free agent.
I've said this, but
I've said this.
First round.
I've said this multiple times on this show that Eli Apple led the league in defensive snaps. Well, he was second in the NFL behind Jalen Ramsey in 2021 in defensive snaps played. Last year, he still played a ton of snaps because Cheeto went down. And yeah, I mean, Jones will play. Like, he's going to play. He was a former 3rd-round pick, I think, with the Eagles.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
pretty high pick, has moved around a lot. One stat that I saw, 2021. Well, he was released with Seattle last year, and then Vegas picked him up midseason. So he only played like 10 games last year in a contract year. He had a negative 5.7 completion percentage as the nearest defender in coverage in 2021, according to NFL Next Gen stats. So 2021, he was pretty good. He's gonna play, and they know that. Like, they're not gonna ask him to lead the league in defensive snaps played. But until Chidobe comes back, and we're not entirely sure what he's able to do, and he's probably going to end up walking because of that exact reason, because he might just not be back to himself. Coming off of torn ACL and in a contract year, it's a lot going on with Awuzie. Mike Hilton's also in a contract year, so they're still going to need to draft probably multiple corners and at least one pretty high, even though they took one pretty high last year and he hit. Like, Bengals have a definite future piece at corner with Cam Taylor-Britt, and they're going to need to get another one.
Yeah. No, I see us going first round or two. I think we get a corner that we spent most of our time at the combine talking to corners. So that wouldn't surprise me at all. I have Irv Smith and Sidney Jones are both former 2nd-rounders. So
yeah,
and
Smith definitely was. And
yeah, so these are quality guys. The what do you have on Basham at linebacker? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, he's going to be a rotational guy. I mean, the Bengals have multiple pass rushers who, if healthy, they're going to do most of the work. They don't ask the interior guys to pass rush a lot. They still will have failed to dip their pool in a smaller 3 technique who can be a 3-down guy and rush the passer. That's still one of the biggest needs on the team. It's been that way. BJ Hill is like decent enough, but he's not a pure 3 technique pass rusher, but he'll be a rotational guy. He's not going to play a whole lot. They'll probably still end up drafting one. They hit on Osai, but they didn't take one last. They hit on Zach Carter. I think Zach Carter will get a lot more playing time in 2023. So that's kind of where Basham will sit in the depth chart. He'll be behind, obviously, the big guys, Hendrickson, Hubbard, Osai, and then Zach Carter is going to be the first one off the bench if something happens. And then you have Basham as, honestly, he's probably going to be just a camp body, I would imagine. He'll probably have to fight to make the team with whichever edge guy they end up drafting on day 3. That's kind of what I'm thinking there. It was a very low risk.
Right.
Nothing really to that signing. He's not going to come in and shock the world and be a BJ Hill. There's not much upside. It's just he's gonna try his best in camp and try to make the team.
I like to close my eyes and pretend it's Boogie Basham, who's really good, but it's not working.
So yeah, you could squint maybe, and if it's blurry, it'll look like Monet.
Right.
So so like I said,
Cam Sample too. So he probably won't. I mean, he might not make the team. Like he might not even make the team.
So he's edge? He's not. I thought he was a linebacker. He's edge.
He's linebacker.
Linebacker, but he's not like a coverage guy, so he's not going to be running routes with guys. He's not going to be guarding tight ends. That's for Jermaine and Logan and ADG to do. So he's not going to line up 7 yards away from the quarterback like in the second level like the linebackers will. He's the linebacker the Bengals like because they normally run a 4-3. They kind of switch to a modified 4-3-3-4 hybrid, but yeah, I guess we froze, but to finish that thought after unpausing this, yeah, the Bengals have switched more to a modified 4-3-3-4 hybrid the last couple of years, getting more athletic guys off the edge. But Basham, again, if he's on the field, he'll rush the passer. He's a bigger dude, but might not make the team because again, we forgot about Cam Sample. So Sample and Carter are two guys who they've drafted the last couple of years that have kind of hit in terms of where they were drafted. Yeah. Carter was a third, Sample was a fourth. And they've played and they've produced. I think Sample had a playoff sack last year. So yeah, Basham might not make the team, but who knows?
We'll see. Now we added, I don't know if we talked about it. We added Cody Ford for depth. That's a pure depth piece. Also, we've, with the signing of Brown, Jonah asked for a trade, but I think Jonah stays. I think Collins might be the odd man out. If somebody's the odd man out.
Well, he has to be healthy. There is an out in Collins' contract that would make sense. It would be financially fiscable to release Collins. It would make sense. Releasing Jonah is not going to happen. They're not going to cut him.
Right. No,
his salary is guaranteed. But yeah, Jonah might not be happy, but the best thing for Jonah might just be to play right tackle in a contract year, because then if he plays right tackle in a contract year, he can use that in contract negotiations next year for whatever team wants him to either play left tackle for them or move him to right tackle. Because again, Jonah as a left tackle, in terms of what teams are going to talk to him about in, again, interviews and free agent meetings next year, is there's never been a point where Jonah was a top 10 left tackle in the league. And that's sucky to say because the Bengals used a really premium pick to get him in 2019. And he missed a whole year. He was out the whole year. And it never felt like he's been like really, really healthy. But Jonah's been a fine left tackle. He's never really had a bad year. He's just been above average, which what we've seen some left tackles make the last couple of years. I mean, I go back to the Nate Soldier contract. Right. That was a long time ago, and that was 4 years, $77 million with the New York Giants. So Jonah will get paid, but if he balls out at right tackle, which I think he's more than capable of doing, he now has a two-way negotiation part, if that makes sense, of what he can say to teams. They have options. They can use a right tackle or move him back to left tackle. So he can show his versatility, and it'll be good for Jonah to find a team that he wants to go to instead of forcing himself out of Cincinnati and him rolling the dice, and it might be drawn dead to go to a really shitty team, and that's just
the bottom line is Jonah has no leverage, no power.
Right, correct.
If the Bengals want him to play right tackle, he's going to play right tackle. Yeah. He is not sitting out. He cannot sit out. He will lose all equity. And unless the Bengals have a right tackle fall to them in the first round that they feel they have to draft, I don't see them trading Jonah unless that tackle falls. They draft the right tackle, and in a mid-draft trade, they trade Jonah for a 3 or a 4 to get the cornerback that you probably thought they were going to take in the first round type of thing. That's the only way I see Jonah being moved. Yeah. And I don't think it's going to happen. And
I agree. And it's in Jonah's best interest to put some great stuff on tape this year. Like I said, put you in a great position to either stay with us and get a better contract or move on to another team. It's in his best interest to go ahead and play a good season. So he's highly motivated. And, let's see. I think most of it was more of just we weren't going to consult him. We were going to go get Orlando Brown.
Right.
So, you're not
You didn't need his
you're not
permission to
that
sign
level
Orlando
player to
Brown.
the team to where we're going to consult you. So,
Right.
so it is what it is. So let's see what happens. Like I said, he's got a huge economic incentive to play well. And the last thing I was going to talk about was Mixon. Now, Katie Blackburn has said that they have no plans on moving Mixon. I think they're going to ask Mixon to take a pay cut. And I think he probably would. I don't think he wants to go anywhere. I don't think he wants to hit the open market with Ezekiel Elliott out there. I think Mixon takes a pay cut and stays. What are your thoughts on that?
Paul
Jake,
Daner said.
I'm gonna close on this.
What did Paul Daner say?
Paul Daner said at the beginning of the month that there's no incentive for Mixon to take a pay cut, which is a little frightening because I don't know if Bengals fans want to hear this, but Joe Mixon's not good anymore. Joe Mixon is a below average running back based on every single advanced metric last year. You might look at the Carolina game and say, yeah, he had 5 million touchdowns in that game, and he ran against one of the worst run defenses in the league at that time that was missing Derek Brown in that game, and say, well, he's still good, but he has no burst. He doesn't fit the scheme that they do. Samaji fit it way better. Mixon's more of a patient guy, and Samaji just runs right through and runs you over. They're going to draft one. They need one because we talked about it earlier about they're just really thin at that position. And I saw some people talking about Travion Williams, but it's been 3-4 years of Travion. If they haven't given him a chance by now, they're not going to. They like him enough to keep him on the roster, but they're not giving Travion Williams 20 snaps a game. And there's still Chris Evans on the team. But again,
right.
It's been 2 years of Chris Evans. Where's his shot been? They have to replace Samaje Perine, and they have to get a guy who is better than Joe Mixon, because if they don't, they have a weak running back room and a back that's not good anymore. And in the scheme that they're trying to run with how much Mixon was relied upon in the pass game, which is another problem in itself because he's not that guy anymore. He's basically never been that guy for the Bengals. He was that guy at Oklahoma, but Marvin never used him in the passing game, and Taylor didn't until like 4 years. And by that time, he was already 27 and 28 and lost his leg. So they need a complete reset in that position room, and it might not be coming, which is a little frightening. But to Bengals fans who still love Mixon, and I love him as much as any player on the team, but he's not that guy anymore.
Okay.
And pay cut, I don't know if they're gonna come instead and kind of choose his play, but they're going to draft somebody.
I agree. I think we addressed it in the draft. What do you think about maybe bringing in Elliott?
So that's where I wanted to go, and it looks like we're losing Jake.
Oh, I think that'd be even worse.
So it'd be worse to get Elliott instead of and keep Mixon. Go ahead.
I'm jumping in. So the one name I wanted all free agency long, I don't see happening at this point anymore. He's still a free agent. I love Jerick McKinnon. He's one of the best pass catching backs in all the NFL. He was phenomenal for the Chiefs down the stretch.
He was a Swiss Army knife for them.
Yeah,
he did a lot of things.
He can run up the middle. I mean, he can carry the ball. I'd love to see it happen. I felt the backfield of him and Mixon would be great. I don't know enough on the numbers to know if they still need to give Mixon or to get Mixon to take a pay cut. I don't know. But what I do know is that Mr. Elliott is certainly on the backside of his career. He's not going to lead a backfield anymore, but he's a heck of a pass blocker, and he's a heck of a blocker in the backfield, and he's a heck of a pass catcher. I don't know if he's the answer. I don't know what he'd cost. I don't know what a backfield of Elliott and Mixon would look like. I don't think there's any doubt that they're going to draft someone. A guy that Tajay Spears out of is it Tulane or Tulsa is climbing up draft boards.
Yes.
Love him. So, can you I don't know if they can economically fit Zeke Mixon with a rookie. The name out there, if he gets to 28, do you take it? Do you take the unicorn and Bijan Robinson? I don't know. I don't think he's going to get there.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, but there's work that needs to be done in the running back room for sure. But flip side, This team just needs to be serviceable at running back. We don't need an all-pro.
Right.
We don't need somebody that's going to win player of the week at any of the 17 weeks in the season. We just need it. We just need serviceable guys in the backfield that can leave the passing game wide open.
Yes, I agree. I think we address it in the draft. I think we'll see. And if Mixon is cut, it'll be a post June 1st cut to save cap space. So, talking about cap space, that brings us right back to the final thing that I really want to talk about was the Joe Burrow extension. We're all sitting here waiting.
Can I say one more thing? Can I say one more thing about Zeke and Mixon? Because I froze and left and came back, and the first thing I heard was the first thing I heard was a backfield of Joe Mixon and Ezekiel Elliott. That would be painful to watch. So that's just a bunch of fat old men who are slower than me on the field at the same time. It's not
that kind of people.
Like you said, first of all, it's not economically possible. They're not going to pay because Mixon's making $12 million. Zeke is going to get 9 to 10 from whatever team signs him just because he's a big name. He's going to get 8 to 9 million. I guarantee you.
I don't think we pay Zeke. I don't think we pay Zeke.
They won't. It's not possible.
I don't want to pay him that much. I don't even
think that Zeke rumor. Well, it wasn't a rumor. He said these are the teams that Zeke Elliott has finalized, but I don't think the Bengals knew that. Like I think they were like we were talking about that, Dad.
That was our joke. Yeah.
That report came out is Zeke.
That was Zeke trying to make a market for himself.
Correct.
Yeah, like Zeke Elliott wants these 3 teams, but do any of these 3 teams want Ezekiel Elliott?
I always get proud of myself when I can make Jake laugh with one of my takes because he's the tweet guy. And when that tweet came out, I called Jake. I said, Jake, did you see that Zeke just listed his 3 finalists? And he hadn't seen it yet. I said, yeah, it's us, it's Eagles, and I forgot who the third was. I said, I don't think any of these 3 teams know that he's on their list.
No, that was Zeke trying to create his own market and his agent trying to create his own market with teams that weren't interested in him and never interested.
It's Scott Boras world of
right. The report was here are all the teams Zeke is interested in, but are these teams interested in Zeke?
Please bid on me. Can you please offer me money?
Yeah. So and then that night, Zach Taylor was at like some charity event or something, and there was a Cincinnati Enquirer reporter there, and he asked him, "What do you think about this?" And he's like, "I got no comment." And he just laughed. He had a smirk on his face. He's like, "The fuck you're trying to say? You think we're signing Ezekiel Elliott? Like, are you new here?" I mean, he's 20. He's a 29-year-old running back. We're trying to get rid of Joe Mixon, who's younger than that and has been in the league last years. And but they're gonna need a draft one. But again, Mixon's not that guy anymore. And if Joe Mixon's a starting running back, I think one, that's an issue. But 2, you said that they don't have to be great at that position. Well, go look at the 2018 Rams with Todd Gurley, because that's what the Bengals are going to look like if they get Bijan Robinson. Is they might score 35 a game, and I don't even think it's going to be that challenging. Because if they're able to run the ball out of 11 personnel, which they will be able to with Bijan, and they can't with Mixon, that's really dangerous. Because if they if they can get teams in base defense to try to stop the run, but Burrow will throw for 350 a game with ease, and that's what Jared Goff did. That's exactly what Jared Goff did with Gurley, and then the moment Gurley left, within 2 years, Jared Goff was gone.
Right. Look, if Jonah's going to play right tackle and healthy and ready to go, and Awuzie's healthy and we're set at corner, I trade up to get Bijan. Because then
he's still a running back.
Yeah, I don't trade up for a running back.
And you have to make sure.
You get my point. I'm just saying. I run to the podium to draft Bijan.
See, that was just what I was going to say. Yes. That is a statement that you will hear me say a lot during March and April, is run to the podium. That's been like my saying the last couple of years. But yes, if Bijan is there, that is a run to the podium type of guy for sure. Yes. I don't know if they agree, and that's fine. Like, I'm not, going to get mad at them for taking a corner or a right tackle in the first round, because when you look at 5th-year options, and those are the players that or those are the positions that you want to be able to get for an extra year and use that first round pick. But Bijan's probably not going to be there anyways. So I would rather have them not trade up. But if they did trade up, it would say a lot of what they think of him and how they're going to use him, which will be exciting.
Last thing I'll say on him, and I know we're going long. I apologize. I listened to one of the other Bengals podcasts last night. You mentioned one of their names, Jake. And they were
Let's go, my guy.
They were discussing, Bijan, and one guy said pretty similar to what you said, Jake. If you think he's the unicorn, you take him. And if they think he's the unicorn as a fan base, we love it. If they don't think he's a unicorn, if they think he's just pretty good, then don't take him. Because we don't need a pretty good running back. But if he's a unicorn, run.
I know exactly who said that. He's one of the guys who's in my chat who I've talked to about Bijan. He is number one on the Bijan train. Mike, Bengals Sands.
Yep.
Mike is for sure. He's the one who was talking to me about looking at the 2018 Rams and seeing what they did with Goff and Gurley. But yeah, that's kind of the mindset with Bijan. Is it's a very real possibility if he's there that the Bengals might take him and just turn into a complete offensive juggernaut.
My goodness, would that be fun?
Yeah, it'd be a lot of fun.
I'd order the jersey that night.
Yes.
Oh yeah, no, he'd be. I mean, Bijan Robinson had his college tape, his highlight reel is like very Tavon Austin. Like I know all the kids like my age used to always look at Tavon Austin's highlights at West Virginia. The kids these days, they're going to look at Bijan Robinson's and the stuff he did at Texas for 3 years. Like I cannot believe he's already in the draft. Those 3 years flew by really fast because they didn't really win a whole lot when he was there. But some of the stuff he did and some of the plays he had was very Barkley-esque too. Yeah. Just unbelievable.
The one great thing is if we were to get Bijan, we wouldn't have to watch Joe Burrow sneak at 2nd and 1 anymore ever again.
No, we would not.
No.
We'd like to see anyway. So yeah. So all right, let's talk. You talk about Burrow. Let's talk about where Katie Blackburn, Zach. They're optimistic. Things are moving forward. I haven't heard anything. That's the one thing we're waiting for is the Burrow contract extension. So I don't know where we're at. Have you guys heard anything? I haven't read. All I've heard are positive things being said by Katie Blackburn or Zach Taylor that it's in progress.
The only thing, and Jake, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, and I don't know if you got the answer. Do the Bengals need to wait until giving him his 5th-year extension to give him the contract extension to make the salary wait 1 year longer? Do we know that answer?
I never found the answer to that. It's pretty it's a complex equation, but I can tell you that Mahomes' extension was late summer, so was Josh Allen's, and that's when Burrow's and Herbert's and Hurts's are probably going to be in late summer.
That's what so I think they do have to wait to be able to get, because they can't give that 5th-year extension for another period.
Right, it's May 1st is the deadline to accept 5th-year option. So they're going to accept the 5th-year option. Joe Burrow will be cheap. He'll be, I think it's 19 million, 20 million for maybe it's like 23 for quarterback. So the Chargers will do that with Herbert. The Eagles can't with Hurts, which
because he was not a first rounder, right?
If this theory that we're talking about is true, which I'll have to ask one of the Bengals salary cap guys on Twitter. I'll DM him tonight. But because he might know the answer, the Eagles might have to, if this is true, then the Eagles will probably extend Hurts first, which I kind of think is interesting because I don't know if these teams are just waiting to be second. I don't know if either of them necessarily are rushing to be first, because we expect, like, the Chargers athletic guys have reported that Herbert's going to get 50. The Bengals guys have reported that Burrow's going to get 50. Hurts will not get 50. But if Hurts gets like 42 or 43, we're going to be, Burrow's going to be like, well, fuck that. I'm way better than this guy. Give me 50. Same thing with Herbert. Now, Herbert hasn't made a Super Bowl, so Burrow has that leg. Burrow has that leg to stand on. Herbert doesn't really. I mean, he's made the playoffs once and blew a 28-point lead.
Right.
But we know how good Herbert is. Herbert absolutely. If he gets paid $50 million a year, no one's gonna complain or throw a fit. But yeah, Hurts won't get that money. But if Hurts gets overpaid a little bit, then those two studs, who are probably the third and fourth best quarterbacks in the league, respectively, at worst, can be like, well, this guy's not as good as us, and he got 43. So especially for the Bengals and Chargers, I don't think they're necessarily rushing to beat each other. They're probably both waiting for Hurts as well to see.
Yeah. All right. We'll see what happens. I definitely think it gets done. They'll get creative.
But there should be no panic. Mahomes was late summer. Josh Allen was mid-August.
They're probably just waiting to announce T and Burrow at the same time.
Yeah. Well, and they are talking. He wants to stay. We want him. So all this stuff. So this is why Bates isn't on the team anymore. This is why we thought Pratt was going to be gone, but Pratt gave us a nice hometown discount. I think Burrow signs a favorable contract if he's given assurances that the money's going to be spent on people around him. I think he's got that Brady type of mentality where it's team first. Like I said, these quarterback numbers have gotten into stupid money numbers. So you can't get by on 45 million. You know what I'm saying? It's gotten into so big that you can leave some money on the table. Obviously, Brady has ability when your wife makes more than you do. But that was it. I think it happens.
As fans, and this, I've seen this way too much on Twitter. It's kind of exhausting. As fans, like you said, Mark, when these numbers are getting astronomically high, it's really easy to put yourself in Burrow's shoes and say, well, yeah, I'll just take 43 and, not get 50 because $43 million is still so much. But these guys are competitive. They want to make more than each other. Burrow and Herbert is a mini little rivalry now, and especially especially between Bengals and Chargers fans. It's getting pretty exhausting because Joe Burrow is just racking up those playoff wins and Herbert's right behind him with 0.
Yes.
So
it's to them. It 100% matters to them. You see it a ton in baseball. A guy gets $40 million a year. The next guy signs for $40 million and like 1,000. Like they know, and it matters to them.
But they also will do stuff like you can do other things. You could say, well, you know what? You're not the most per year, but you've got the largest guarantee, or you've got the largest signing bonus. Like Orlando Browns, the big thing was the signing bonus he got. That was the largest signing bonus ever given. So, it's certain things. You can give them a nugget that they can hang on because there's so many different ways to look at it. In the end, it's a boatload of money. I mean, it's third world country money, when you look at some of the GNPs of some of these countries. So, like I said, it's going to happen.
So Josh Allen was $150 million guaranteed, and you also made a point, Mark, about the team friendly part of it. The Bengals can make it a team friendly deal and still give Burrow the money he's deserved if he's willing to wait for it, like Mahomes is. And that is now seen, and it's been 2 years since he signed it, and it's already looking like the best contract in the sport in terms of value wise. And in another 2 years, it is going to be better than any contract by far in the sport. And they can
going up so much and people lose sight
well, that's because it's exponentially. It's like there's a graph and it's, well, the cap's going up, but his contract keeps going up and the cap's still going up. So it's the same value every year. And he's still Mahomes, and that's, but that's the wrinkle that they might have to really look at. But I don't know if they're going to, because they don't restructure contracts, and that's what the Chiefs have done this time with Mahomes.
What about making it kind of a floating contract where his increases are based upon the increase in the salary cap? So he could get a percentage. I mean, like I said, Katie Blackburn is really good at this. So we can make him. He could be the first person whose contract is guaranteed to increase because it's tied to increases in salary caps. They can get creative here. So I see that probably happening, which will give Joe something to hang his hat on. Hey, I didn't get this, but I've got that. So
the biggest thing that I will tell people watching and listening in terms of the reasons that they should not be worrying is because negotiations these days, for those reasons, are so complex. There is a lot of stuff that these parties are throwing out on the table. There a lot of stuff that they're putting down, a lot of options out there, a lot of routes and directions that they can go. And the biggest thing is that the two sides are going to figure out what the best contract deal is for the team and for Burrow, because Joe Burrow does not want to be there for 10 more years and put the team in a cap hell situation like Deshaun Watson did with Cleveland.
Right.
That's not what's going to happen. There's going to be flexibility there. There has to be, because if there's not, then they're behind the 8 ball compared to their two competitors in the AFC. and probably a third because the Chargers are going to do that with Herbert. So they'll be the only team that doesn't have flexibility if they refuse to do that and they just give Burrow whatever he wants. But I don't think anybody wants that. So that's not what's going to happen. Is they're going to, and that's why this is taking so long. That's why I want to tell people this is a reason why they don't need to worry.
That's right.
Is
relax.
Because all the timing
Aaron
and
Rodgers, relax.
Right. It's a
Relax.
very long process. We're not on Madden here and saying, yep, 8 years, 240. Burrow comes 9 years, 260. We're going to increase that ticker and boom, it's done. That's not, no, there's going to be, and also an NFL contract. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't get released to the public that they also need to figure out. Yeah. I mean, there's probably stuff in the contract where, Joe Burrow doesn't have to pay for anything in the vending machine for 7 years, or he gets, he X amount of family passes per game. Like there's
if you're making like $4 or $5 million a month, okay, so you're making $4 million a month. Do you really care about the vending machine? I mean, heck, you can own the company that brings and fills the vending machines.
You never know. He might want the team to, buy a personalized golf cart for his girlfriend. Yeah, just a bunch of stuff. So his girlfriend can be like, yeah, I got this golf cart from the team. How cool is this?
It's funny what people negotiate it. My dad was in transportation as a Teamster at the studios for years. He's retired. But one of the things he loved to do was work on Jim Carrey movies because Jim Carrey insisted on an espresso truck on location on every shoot. So if you liked your gourmet coffee, you wanted to work on a Jim Carrey. He was big on the sushi and big on the espresso trucks. So it's weird where these guys have their feelings but they will negotiate that stuff in, and you never know. So
I know you guys have seen Moneyball, and in the movie, Billy Beane's talking to the then Cleveland Indians GM about Ricardo Rancone. He gets Ricardo Rancone, and he has the Indians GM fill his vending machine for 2 years. I have not confirmed if that's actually what happened, but I really want that to be true.
Yeah, there you go. So, all right. Well, I want to remind everybody, we're going to wrap this up. I want to remind everybody, this has been an amazing offseason. We got Orlando Brown. We got Jermaine Pratt. We weren't expecting. The players we lost, we knew we were going to lose, okay? And we've replaced them with either lateral moves or better players. And then I want to point out the biggest win. We didn't lose any of our coaches. So this is all huge. And we put ourselves in a position to go BPA throughout the draft. We really have. We don't have to do anything at one. We can take the best possible player, whether it's a running back, a cornerback, a tight end, whatever we decide. So this has been a great offseason, even though we only really have the Orlando Brown signing. So I want everybody to feel good about that. I can't stress that enough. The continuity going into this year. Heck, our win total's 11.5. We're the number, us and the Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean,
it's 11.5. Well, what more can you ask for?
It's way too early to think about teams who could win the Super Bowl. Obviously, the Bengals are going to be in that bubble for years to come, but they put themselves in a position to be the best team in the league. And there's probably only 3 teams, maybe at most 3 other teams. I don't even think I'd put the Eagles there because the Eagles weren't the best team in the league last year, and they lost a shit ton of players and coaches. So they put themselves in a position with this offseason to be the best team in the league. Either them, Buffalo, or KC. That's it.
So, yeah. All right. With that, Jake, remind everybody where they can find your stuff because he does some great podcasts. You definitely want to be following Jake on Twitter. Remind them where they can find your stuff.
Yeah, especially when football season comes around. Jake Circus podcast on Spotify and YouTube, season 3 coming out towards the end of the summer. And then Twitter at Jake Circus. It's where all my Bengal stuff goes, gambling, baseball. If you want some nerdy baseball stats about guys I like, check out the Twitter.
There you go. And if you don't subscribe, please subscribe. It's all we ask to show by fans, for fans. We just ask for your support. Hit the bell. We're going to be doing, I don't know exactly when it's going to be, but we're going to be doing a draft preview. We're going to be doing a big draft recap. We might do a show during the draft if we have, some big news. So just hit the bell so you get the alerts. So please subscribe. Please hit the bell. Devin, Jake, great show. We'll be back in a couple weeks with more. So let's with that. I'm going to say hoo day, everybody. Take care.
Hoo day.